They say walk in your truth and not in your shadows. They also tell you you're too much, making you feel like a burden, but they always want you to speak up for what isn't spoken. Unspoken truth, hiding behind an unspoken poet, unspoken stories, never get told by unspoken words. Yo, what's good? It's your girl, Becky the Poet here. Welcome to Unspoken Words Podcast. You guys, it's been long overdue. But today we have a special guest. It is a Zoom interview. So go ahead, Poet, introduce yourself.
Well, hello, everyone. First of all, I want to start off by saying thank you for having me on this platform. It is an honor, to say the least. I'm Sabreen Jolley. I'm an author, poet, and educator. I'm currently located in Brooklyn, New York. I just moved here from Atlanta, Georgia, where I've been for the last 7 years. Families in Houston, Texas, grew up in Arkansas, born in California. So I'm kind of like a nomad, but it is an honor to be here. I'm excited to get into the conversation.
I really thought you lived in Atlanta because when I was creeping on your Instagram, not crooked. That's a very horrible word, you guys. I was looking at her Instagram.
It's all good.
And your location's in Atlanta, and I was like, she must be from there. And
I'm just back and forth, so Technically I'm still there.
So that means I can bring you to Dallas to be one of a featured poet guest on one of the po-ups that I host every other Thursday at this bar in Dallas, right?
Of course. My family's in Houston. So, Dallas is 3 hours away? I'll be in Dallas.
Cool. So I love to start off my podcast with a little short snippet from the poet. You can spit whatever, you can freestyle whatever. It don't have to be long. It could be short. It could be a half poem. It could be a full poem. But just get a little snippet of your artwork for us and my listeners.
Got you. Hey, Mother Shange, do you remember the whisper, soft and subtle, quiet even, but loud enough for me to hear you say, I used to live in the world, really be in the world, free and sweet talking, good morning and thank you and nice day. I can't no more. I can't be nice to nobody. Nice is such a ripoff. Regular beauty and smile in the street is such a setup. And as I reflected on your earnest reminder dedicated to colored girls like me who have considered suicide when the rainbow was enough, I was reminded to live, to thrive even and boldly and loudly enough to remind myself and others that this pussy ain't free. Why would it be? After all, it has been drenched in drudgery, backstroking in a sea of confused phalluses that have lost their way amidst the waves and somehow settled on the shores of my preciousness. Do you really believe that this temple comes without cost? Hey, Mother Shange, thank you for awakening my ode to self-worth. Mother, I forgot that the rainbow only appears after the rain, and no matter how desolate lands become because of it, I will dance in it, because I know that soon after it will reveal my beautiful story in red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Ooh, this pussy ain't free. And I'm gonna stop right there.
I always love when my poets always hit me with like a sexual poem, because I'm never really prepared for it. I'll be hosting my events and I'll be, all right, we have the next poet up, and they'll go into something erotic. And I'm like,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
That's funny though. People think that's an erotic poem, but it's not.
I know it's not erotic. Just the word, I guess the word pussy tickles me.
It just pops at you.
But so tell us a little bit about what that poem was about and where you were inspired from.
So two people I was inspired by: Ntozake Shange, the late great Ntozake Shange, who was the creator of For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Was Enough, and my mother. So I got that book from a lady at my school at Clark, Atlanta. She just gave me a collection, like a big box full of poems. And one day I was just breezing through. I'm like, let me learn a little bit about her. And I was so inspired just by her whole movement. She was like the originator of the choreo poem. So having movement and dance and all those different types of things added to spoken word or just poetry. and my mom and all of her many things that she's been through. Her stories are just, it's funny. You would think they were like movies, but it's deep. But anyways, it was just an honor to women and women who've been through things, overcome things, and really push through in a way that's like just beautiful, something that you don't see today. And not that here I go. Not that women are weak today, because I feel like women, we are very resilient, but I feel like the society is breeding a generation of women who don't exude the same types of strengths that they did once upon a time. And that's just not just my opinion, but just something that I've seen from observation. So that's to the women who continue to push through in spite of the difficulties. So.
No, I love that. I love that when people write about poems like that, because now the talk nowadays is about how important women are. You know, I think nowadays it is overlooked still. Mm-hmm. And I guess even other women, we don't like, we kind of like hate other women, like not like hate, but like, you know, you kind of like, it's like envious, jealousy. So, you know, we're just not as a community or collaborative anymore, you know. And it's also like, I'm always better than you, or I have this kind of lifestyle, you know. So I get it, and I also love it, because at the end of the day, I mean, I feel like we're all here for each other. Yeah. But and then we all go through the same traumas. We don't always speak about, but when that trauma happens, you always want somebody to listen, you know.
Definitely.
I want to say I love that you're an educator as well too, and you're a poet, because I think poetry and education are two things that right now it's kind of being lost. Yeah. See, when I started poetry, I all I knew was free verse. And I went to school and learned all the grammar, the proper way of like writing actual poems, like from like Robert Frost to like those Back in the Gap kind of stuff, you know. But we hardly see like an educator as a poet, you know. And nowadays, people who are poets, they are learning how to be educators, which is also great, but it's, you know, it's different from who's actually an educator.
Yeah, it's funny because I never thought that I would teach. I thought that if I ever had a day job, it would be maybe a professor, but not in like elementary or anything like that. So I taught kindergarten for 2 years, and I remember I was just like praying. I'm like, you know what? You know my desires as a poet and as a writer, and one thing that I've always wanted to do was write children's books that eventually turned into like shows. And so I'm super excited about that journey. And so I'll say about 6 months later, I got an opportunity to teach kindergarten. I'm like, wow, look at how things just line up. And it taught me so much about people, about myself. And they'll see I have videos of them too. They'll clap at my videos, like, Miss Jolley, that's her. And so now in New York, and I'm dealing with the older group of kids. I'm dealing with fourth graders, but they are, I mean, they are so advanced. It's crazy. Sometimes I don't even believe that they're fourth graders, but they'll write poems to me, or they'll say, one day I'm going to see Miss Jolley on TV, or whatever the case is. And it's so cool to see myself in them. Like, I used to sit in your seat as well, and I'm still growing into who I'm supposed to be. And you have like so much time to figure that out. And so it's so beautiful for them to be inspired by me. But more than that, I'm inspired by them. And I'm just grateful for this journey as an educator. I don't necessarily see myself in the classroom forever, but I definitely see myself in education long term, because it's needed, and it's very necessary.
I love how you're working with the younger kids, you know. I think it starts when you're young, like to what you're inspired by, what you're influenced by, and what your environment is. So when you get older, you understand how life is. I look at my nieces and nephew right now, not my nieces and nephews. I don't even have siblings that have kids. I'm sorry, my little cousins. And they're like focused on their iPad, and that's literally their environment. That's how they're influenced. And I see the personality, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry I failed you.
I failed you.
No, I'm just so sorry that I was able to influence your life a little bit better, you know?
Yeah, I feel you.
And then it's not always the blame of someone else. It's also like the parents, you know, it's so easy to give kids an iPad and be like, all right, here, entertain yourself. I'm gonna go do this, you know? So I understand
I have a poem about that, by the way.
Well, we're going to have to bring you to Dallas for you to recite that for us.
Look, bring me on in. Look, I'm ready.
So I was on Instagram and I saw that you have a mobile bookstore and you have a podcast as well too.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about those things?
Hey, so Dope Mobile Bookstore is actually it was a concept that my boyfriend at the time and I came up with. I was like, we should just get a van and like literally travel the world and just see that. I'll sell my books, do my poetry, and you do your thing. He was an instrumentalist, and so I'm like, well, I could really turn this into a bookstore because I've wanted to have a bookstore. And so that's how the idea came up. So starting off, we're going to be a pop-up shop. So we did one event, and then we did a book club meeting one time, and I got this social innovation fellowship through Teach for America, which was to help me kind of build and shape the idea. And so we're still in that growing phase. I actually was talking to someone about helping me get the van together, like renovate the inside of a van and get all that good stuff together.
That is a thing now. It's very popular. I know you're not gonna live in it, but it's very popular to live in a van. But if you can live in it, I'm pretty sure you can do a mobile anything in it. You know? Oh yeah, for sure. So I'm super excited about that, and so I look forward to my brother helping and working with me on that. But that's like one of the projects that it is gonna, take some real work. Yeah. I'm so excited about that. Are you gonna also do a mobile podcasting while you're in that mobile bookstore?
Now look, we gonna put we gonna wait for that because I got a lot going on, but I would love to do that. I really would. We have Couch Colloquy, my brother and I. We were just, I don't know. It's funny. We have like the best conversations on the phone, and we like, man, we need to record this. Like, this is not just regular conversation. Right. This is something people need to hear. So we just went on Instagram one day and just started to record it. And we actually just got done talking. We're actually going to meet now, but after this, and talk about some logistical things and some ventures that we plan on doing. But that's a very, very fun thing. So anybody watching this who's a Couch Colloquy fan and likes to get on, don't worry, we coming, y'all. We got a lot going on. We some hustlers. We gotta, No,
I totally understand where you're coming from. I think currently right now there'll be an episode that we release too for anybody who all my audience stuff is to speaking about how what I've been up to and why this podcast has been on hold for so long. But I will say this, when it comes down to writing poetry, even nowadays, do you think traumatic poems is always a go-to for people? Do you think what drives people in? Or is it just one of those things where we just write traumatic poems just to, I guess, build a pity party for ourselves?
Honestly, I think it's a combination of both. I feel like poetry is like an expression of what you're experiencing, something that you're going through, and which is why whenever people ask me, what is your main topics, I'm just like life, because my experiences are very vast. And so I write depending on what I'm inspired by. But honestly, a lot of people are trauma bonding through poetry. It's a thing where trauma is becoming a popular thing. So the more traumatized you are, the more difficult your life seems. It's like people buy into that. And so a lot of artists, not just poets, but a lot of artists are recognizing that. And so they're like, ooh, how can I make the next best drama poem about this person who got shot, or that person who got hurt, or this thing that happened in my life. Then on the other hand, it's a situation where these people are actually really experiencing these things. And so they're vocalizing this and wanting to share this with the world. But I'm more of an active poet. So my thing is, if we're experiencing this and we're expressing this and and these are real situations for us, we also need to be coming up with actionable solutions so that we can overcome this. So when people look at poetry, it's not just, the moon and the stars and this happened to my people. But no, what are you doing? What are you actively working towards to ensure that this is something that can that can eventually cease. But like I said, it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, you got the people who really are like trying to trauma bond and bring people in through that. And then you have the people like, no, this is my daily reality. So we have to ask ourselves, okay, what are we doing to make sure that this is something that is not persistent in the community? So
how do you feel about the phrase misery loves company? I know it involves the same thing, you know, because sometimes as poets or people who are hurt, you know, we want to be around people who are hurt too. Yeah. And one thing is but I will say the only flaw when it comes down is that we go into a cycle of continue complaining about it and nothing ever coming good out of that, you know? And I feel like trauma poetry is great, but a lot of people nowadays are wanting the good side of things. So how did you overcome it? You know? How do you feel like poets nowadays are handling the trauma poems? Are they keeping it on a cliffhanger? Are they speaking about the positive side of it? What is your opinion on that?
I think it's a combination of both. I actually just did a slam out here, and I was, you know, I'm not a slam poet, but I've done slam, and I think it teaches you strategy. And one thing that I noticed among a lot of the poets who were in there was the minute they saw themselves coming up against a poet who was like bringing the heat, they would go into that trauma poem. Like, I love this, and I'm realizing we really are people who trauma bond, like a group of people who trauma, not people as in Black people or white or whatever.
Just anybody and everybody.
Artists who are trauma bonding, and it is a sellable thing. Trauma is very sellable. That miserable type of vibe is really sellable nowadays. And so I think that poets are kind of keeping that in the closet for like, oh, this is what's going to hit. But like I said, we have to become a lot more vast than just these traumatic poems. You know what I mean? But at the same time, if this is your reality and this is something that you're experiencing, and this is something that is really true to you, that you feel like it's going to heal other people or heal yourself, speak about it, right? But I think it's all about the intention behind it. You know, are you doing it just for a couple of likes? Or are you doing it because this is really your reality? You really feel like this is something that needs to be out there to free yourself and other people.
I like that a lot. When it comes down to poetry too, I watched a couple of videos, and I will say you're the definition of music videos and poetry in one. It's very cinematography, like it's a storytelling. And I listen to your poems, and your poems tell a story, but when you look at your visuals, it ties all together. So as a poet, I know for us, it's really, we can bring the words, but we can't bring the visuals all the time. Sometimes my video guy will be like, all right, I want this. And he can bring the visuals, but they may not always be like something like, because we understand each other, it's easy for us, right? But if he was going to another poet and they're like, hey, I want this, it's really hard to understand. So how, as a poet, do you relay that message to the people who you're working with to create this story within the visual and with like matching up with your poems?
I just think I'm lucky enough to have some people who would deal with all my trauma and my extra. I'm just a dramatic person. Okay. Negative way, but I'm just extra anyways. So I'm lucky enough to have a videographer who's like that. One of the first videos I did was like an ode to Nina Simone, and it was talking about women and traumas that Black people experience, a lot of things. I remember we were hanging from a noose and all that good stuff. And, you know,
all that good stuff,
all that bad stuff. I was talking to the videographer. I just pretty much let him know what I was feeling. I literally had a whole vision in my mind, and he created that. And one day he told me, like, you know, I want to have like more autonomy over what it is that I'm doing as far as you know, the visual aspect of it. So, you know, next time we do a video together, I would love to kind of create it. I'm like, okay, cool. But then I'm like, I have ideas of my own too. So I found a videographer who I could just talk to, like, hey, this is what I want to see. Sometimes we're literally creating scenes as we are shooting. And so it all depends. But lately, a lot of my videos are real simple. I'm just sitting down, speaking, you know, doing my thing. But I do have something coming up. I'm really not good. I don't feel like I should speak on it too much, but it's gonna include music, poetry, movement. acting. It's going to be something beautiful. So I'm excited about that. And that cost. So I think that's the reason why a lot of poets kind of, it's difficult to get that type of thing going, because it's a lot of money to bring all that together.
Definitely. Sometimes I put a pause on poetry a lot just so I can rack up to do whatever I need to do. So I love, honestly, I love your energy. And honestly, I'm so glad you consistently pushed me to like, hey, well, we going to do this. We're going to do this, and reached out because, you know, we have busy lives. So I'm glad we had this conversation. It really makes me want to push you to bring you from wherever you are. I don't know where you will be at that time, to come to Dallas and perform at one of my showcasings that happens every other Thursday. Mm-hmm. So I do like to end with 3 advice. So being a nomadic poet, you go from city to city. How do you adjust to like the new poetry environment? So give me 3 advice that you would give to poets who are like moving from different cities, and how they can find new poetry scenes, develop their own character in their poetry scene, rather than just being comfortable in their own city.
So it is easy to get kind of stuck in that one vibe. This is the group that I'm used to. One thing that I would say is, as simple as it sounds, is travel. The more you travel, the more your palette expands. And so it goes from being, what kind of poetry is that, to, okay, that's something that I can take something from. That's something that I can learn from. Okay, I noticed that they're using a different meter or a different rhythm. That's something that I may not be feeling that, but I can add that to my own thing. The second thing that I would say is study poetry. A lot of poets don't read other poets or don't really listen to other poets. It's kind of like, let me just get this out. And I would say study other people, study yourself. So if you have a video, or if you have any video, if it's from an open mic, off your phone, whatever, study yourself and see those little nuances that you can, correct and tweak so that you can constantly get better. And let's see, what else would I say? I would say, remain open. This is one of those fields where we don't know where this thing is going to go. And I say stay open, stay creative, because you can't do the same thing and expect a different result. I've only technically been at it as far as like people seeing me for about two years and some change.
Well, you're hitting it hard for sure. I'll tell you that.
3 years, but 2 years and some change, because that 2020, I just had to dedicate that to my people and myself. You feel? Yeah. And so a lot has happened in that short amount of time. I won the Apollo.
You won the Apollo?
Yeah, first place at the Apollo, one of the amateur nights.
Okay.
Featured in Jamaica. It's been a lot of great things that have happened. And I would say research, go online. Like I used to be like, wow, how can I find this? How can I do this? Everybody's doing this, that, and the third. But the hungrier you are, the more you attract people. Believe it or not, it sounds like, oh, this is just some cosmic shit. No, it's not. Really. If you really are hungry enough in your mind, if you're vibrating on that frequency, like this is really what I want, you'll just start randomly seeing things pop up. Google. Yeah. I'm telling you, it'll come.
No, I really, if you open your energy to it, things happen, and you're like, wow, I've asked for this. I didn't know it was going to happen for real. Now it's here. What do I do now? So, I mean, I really believe in all that you said. You have great advice. And to touch back on one of your advice, you said to study other poets. I feel as though people have developed this persona of being this ego of like, if I study other people, I might be copying them, or they might be copying me, or blah, 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 or in a competitive world. And the whole point of it is to study them, be open to their techniques and learn from them, and not just be so uptight about it and thinking that you did it first or you could do it better type of stuff, because it's a community of things. We're all going to grow eventually, and it just takes time to who grows, if everybody grows faster than here and what, because sometimes poetry may not be your end goal. But at the end of the day, I will say your advice was really great. I really, 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 really would love for you to come out here to Dallas. And we've talked about this, and we're going to make it happen. But go ahead and drop your social media and anything coming up or anything.
Okay, cool. So you can follow me on all social medias at Sabreen Speaks. If you put in my name on what is that thing? Google, I'm telling you, it'll pop up all of that information, Sabreen Jolley. But again, at Sabreen Speaks on all social media platforms. The next thing that I have coming up is in Edenville, Georgia, or not Edenville, Edenton, Georgia, with my people, VIP in the ATL. So I'm super, super excited about that. So if you're watching this and you're in Georgia, November 13th, I would love for you to come out. And also tomorrow I'll be on a radio show.
Tomorrow will probably have passed by then.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So yeah, that is what's going on. But again, I'm so grateful to be on here, and I look forward to just collaborating.
Nice. So you guys go ahead and follow her. Share this podcast somewhere on November 19th here in Dallas at the People's Last Stand. I'm doing a Poet with Words. I've been doing this this is my fifth one right now. But to also make it real special, it's my birthday month. So November 28th is my actual birthday. So I'm doing a little early birthday celebration on the 19th at the People's Last Stand at my show. So come through, check her out if you're in Georgia or Atlanta, or one of them on the 13th of November.
Brooklyn or
wherever. Just follow her on Instagram. You'll find out more information. All right, you guys, and we are out. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my YouTube at Becky the Poet, and then follow me on Instagram, Becky the Poet, and the podcast, Unspoken Words Podcast. All right, you guys, love y'all.